So here in Patrick and Moira, we have a man as a prisoner, just like St. Patrick was, with fate as his lover. Since it is Sander Cohen who openly rejects the dogma of both Ryan and Fontaine, it seems as if Cohen himself may have found his own twisted way of embracing his belief that if man is indeed a prisoner to fate, then the best possible thing he can do is to embrace her like a lover. And by the way, Fontaine is always co-opting everything. Fontaine uses religion to further his cause. He uses this poster to make up a story. Fontaine is taking elements from other people's visions, right? Which is just what an opportunist would do. So Fontaine has no real vision of his own, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's interesting that Fontaine is using these elements in a way, but he has no vision of his own. Cohen certainly does. So this Patrick and Moira is a story of love after death. And that story of love after death is an embrace of the inevitable. And Cohen is a man who has welcomed a reality which has largely been ignored by Fontaine and Ryan. And I'm not talking about death necessarily. I'm talking about something more that I'll reveal at the end of the series. Cohen's embrace of reality, or at least what he believes his reality to be, has driven him into an existential fit of madness. Is Sanders seeing something behind his mask or persona which Ryan, Fontaine, nor anyone else is not able to see? Is Sander Cohen trying to tell us something about the nature of identity and embracing the inevitable? Something that neither Ryan nor Fontaine have come into contact with? Could Sander Cohen actually be demonstrating a sort of crazy wisdom or divine madness which transcends the petty quibbles between Atlas and Ryan, pointing us to an even deeper truth hiding in plain sight? It certainly seems that Sander Cohen knows something that we don't, even though he has a peculiar way of saying it. What I think is most telling is Cohen's poem entitled The Wild Bunny. And it reads, "I want to take the ears off, but I can't. I hop, and when I hop, I never get off the ground. It's my curse, my eternal curse. I want to take the ears off, but I can't. It's my curse. It's my fucking curse. I want to take the ears off. Please take them off, please." Now, this could be interpreted in many ways, but given Cohen's natural inclination for being a performer, I would have to go with the interpretation that Cohen is making a commentary on his deep dissatisfaction with his art being seen merely as superficial entertainment. Cohen senses there is more to life than the haphazard set of accidents which led to his career in the performing arts. It's not that Cohen hasn't become self-actualized through his art, because he most certainly has. Cohen senses there is something far more to his being than just the mask or persona, which is only the story we tell ourselves and each other about who we are, or who we think we are, when in objective reality, we are none of those things, and maybe Cohen is beginning to understand this in a certain way. And while the White Rabbit does hold some important significance in its own right, even the game's creative director, Ken Levine, admitted this choice of the White Rabbit was purely by accident. It seems that so much of what Levine ended up with in the finished product, known as Bioshock, sort of came together by chance. Although I would add that since it's the unconscious that is really running the show with any of us, much of what seems to be chance to the conscious mind is very much intentionally unconscious all along. It could also be Levine's willingness to accept feedback on his work, something which accounted for the dramatic opening sequence of the game. They didn't have that in the beginning, and it was a rush job to put that together. And it worked brilliantly. And it's not really the mask, though, or the rabbit, or the cat, or any other such outward form that is the most important clue here, but rather the fact that Cohen is associated with a mask at all. The mask itself is another reference which harkens back to the Greek origins of Western civilization. As I've mentioned before in other videos, we derive the word persona, or personality, or person, from the masks worn by Greek actors. The persona was originally a mask worn to protect, or not to protect, but worn to project the voice of the actor to the audience. And persona is two words, of course. The word per meaning through, and the word sona meaning sound, so through sound. Since that time, the idea of wearing a mask, putting on a good face, or adopting a certain persona means that we are all involved in a drama in our everyday lives. One that Cohen realizes is not any different. His art is not any different than life itself. We all act our parts according to the certain story we tell ourselves and each other. It's an enduring component of our reality with which the actor so convincingly leads the audience this way and that, just as expertly as we conduct the drama of our own lives. The White Rabbit has famously come from Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, of course. Carroll describes the rabbit as the opposite of Alice, nervously shilly-shallying, I love that phrase, by the way, always in a hurry and quite bothered by everything. The rabbit treats those below him very poorly, and those who seem to be above him he interacts with very nervously, profusely apologizing for himself. Carroll was relaying a very artfully disguised message about the notion of identity and the self with the White Rabbit. In this sense, the White Rabbit is hopelessly immersed in his own mental projection of the self, as well as with others. To follow the White Rabbit is to trod along the same unconscious path driven by one's illusory image of the self. Cohen hints at his desire to be free of the confines of the self, or this imagining of what the self is, but he feels deeply as if he were its prisoner in some way. So that poem is Cohen hinting at this. And it's only after completing the macabre, artful sequence of Cohen's magnum opus that Jack is then able to leave Fort Frolic, resuming the plot line once again and moving onward to Hephaestus. It should also be noted that unlike most of the other major characters, the player does not have to do battle with Cohen in order to progress in the game. Another clear indicator that Fort Frolic is meant to be something completely different than the rest of the game.